Hey, guess what? The Ukraine war is actually hurting us and not Russia. I know it sounds like a broken record, but get this. Corporate self-sanctioning of Russia has U.S. fearing economic blowback. What do you mean? What does that mean, self-sanctioning? Well, Russia's invasion of Ukraine galvanized the United States, the UK, and European Union to unleash a slew of sanctions meant to punish Vladimir Putin's government and pressure him to pull his forces back. But some Biden administration officials are now privately expressing concern that rather than dissuading the Kremlin as intended, the penalties are instead exacerbating inflation, worsening food insecurity, and punishing ordinary Russians more than Putin and his allies. Whoopsie daisy. Officials were initially impressed by the willingness of companies from BP to McDonald's Corp to abruptly self-sanction, sometimes selling assets at fire sale prices. But the administration was caught off guard by the potential knock-on effects from supply chain bottlenecks to uninsurable grain exports due to the company's decisions to leave. So when the companies decided to amscray, it actually screwed everything up. It didn't actually just hurt Putin, Russia, whatever. It screwed up supply chains and bottleneck, all kind of things, right? In an acknowledgement of that concern on May 25th, the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, why don't you OFAC yourself, which oversees sanction regimes, they extended a general license so that companies could continue to pay taxes, fees, and import duties related to doing business in Russia until September 30th. So this is this is all symbolism in pursuit of more energy sales to Europe for American companies. The message was clear. Doing business in Russia is allowed, provided companies aren't working with sanctioned entities. The concessions and adjustments highlight the difficulties involved in sanctioning the world's 11th largest economy. Previous sanctions campaigns against countries such as Iran and North Korea sought to impose a similar level of isolation on much smaller economies. Russia's ties to the global commodities market, particularly energy and grains, has made this much more complicated. There's no sign that administration officials feel their sanctions policy was a mistake, or they want to dial back the pressure. If anything, officials have said a key U.S. goal is to ensure Russia can't do to other nations what it has done to Ukraine. But the collateral damage from the sanctions has been wider than expected. This is in Bloomberg.
Bloomberg's been pretty good about covering this stuff.
That's wild, right? When the invasion began, the Biden administration believed that if penalties exempted food and energy, the impact on inflation at home would be minimal. Since then, energy and food have become key drivers of the highest U.S. inflation rates in 40 years. A huge political liability for President Joe Biden and the Democratic Party heading into November's midterm, I'll say. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said that she was wrong in believing last year that inflationary pressures would pass. So while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged U.S. businesses to cease operations in Russia, telling a joint Russian and session of Congress that the Russian market was flooded with our blood, the Biden administration has been encouraging some commerce, including for agriculture, medicine, and telecommunications. If regular people knew this, what do you think their response would be? Wait a minute, you're making me pay $9 a gallon for fucking gas, but you're also doing agriculture trade, medicine trade, so what the so just shit that hurts me?
If the people found out that the administration knows less than Bill Maher about these about how this stuff works.
So this guy tweets out, or this woman says, some Biden officials privately expressed concern that rather than dissuade the Kremlin as intended, U.S. sanctions have instead exacerbated inflation. Jeffrey Toobin likes that word. Exacerbated inflation, worsened food insecurity, and punished ordinary Russians more than Putin or his allies. And then Glenn Greenwald retweets that and says, anyone who suggested the sanctions regime would cause this was immediately dismissed as a Kremlin apologist or an asset. True for any questioning of the instant U.S.-NATO consensus on this war. This is what always happens with sanctions. These tactics were designed to squash debate. I say squash because it means the same thing.
Did you see they took the McDonald's and just changed it to like
Yeah.
Patriots or something in Russia?
Yeah. The problem, though, Kurt, from the start was the obligatory moralism narrative didn't help decipher what policies would and wouldn't work. And that was as intended. There was so much to debate and question about U.S. policy, but it was barred. Anyone who tried was maligned as a Russian stooge. And that's going to be talking about more of that in our next story. But you're not even allowed to have debates. Of course, that's how it always is, though. That's how it was around Iraq. That's how it was without Libya. If you deviate from the military-industrial complex or the establishment narrative about war, or Syria, look what they said. Syria, they still call me an Assadist. If you have a counter narrative or a counter idea or point of view than the CIA, you're somehow a stooge of another government. Aaron Mate says, and this comes as Ukraine is losing hundreds of soldiers per week, and significant territory. Time for another $40 billion for the proxy war. MSNBC just airing Putin's price hike on a loop. And another Matt Duss think piece on how Biden is brilliantly handling the Ukraine crisis. Yeah. So everything we're doing in Ukraine is backfiring. Everything has an unintended consequence. And of course, Joe Biden's administration is punching America in the dick on a daily basis. And of course, the corporate bought media isn't going to tell you that, although Bloomberg will, I guess. So this is a big. Go ahead, Jackson. You want to say something?
Oh no, it's me. I was going to say as long as Biden can still ride a bike, I'll still vote for him.
So they wanted companies to get out of Russia. Let's hurt them. And it turns out it hurt us. Of course, just like the sanctions are hurting us more than Russia. The dollar is hurting, not the ruble. The ruble's stronger than it's ever been since before the war.
Yeah, and also interest rates in Russia, benchmark interest rates are about the same as interest rates in the United States right now, which is incredible. But also what I want to add here is in the Bloomberg article, they say the Biden administration is quietly encouraging some industries like big ag to start purchasing Russian fertilizer. It's still going to be an ungodly amount of money because if if the U.S. is still sanctioning the shippers, the insurance companies, production companies, but they can maybe buy some fertilizer. Everything else is going to be the prices are going to be through the roof because they're going to have to account for the potential of being sanctioned from purchasing from these other companies, the shippers, the insurance companies that are still all sanctioned. So it really doesn't address the bottom line issue here, which is the sanction warfare. If you still have 90% of the sanctions, the crisis is still going to persist and get worse.
This is what people were afraid Trump was going to do. Like, fuck everything up so hard that it affects everybody. And there's no way to fix it. Well, this is what the grown-ups are doing. That's the Joe Biden and the grown-ups.
Finally, the peps are in the room.
Yeah. What is a pep? What does that mean, pep?
A grandpa. It's like a stupid grandpa name.
Oh, okay.
People have like weird names for their grandpa.
Yeah, I got you. Yes. Hey, we're doing stand-up dates. Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, Chicago, Sacramento, and then San Diego, where I'm taping my new special. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our live shows. We're coming to your town, maybe.